Hello. Now I feel like every time I do this, it's like everything everywhere all at once. The hot dog hands, fingers, when you do this. I can't do this anymore. It makes me think of hot dog fingers. Anyway, hi, you guys. Good to see you. I was just sort of vibing with the music. How are you, our little Tuesday night family? I see so many of you that have have become our little Tuesday night group. So it's great to see you guys. Kathy Patterson, of course, Eric, Gabrielle, Jason, Tanya, Maggie. Hi, you guys. Andrea, so many of you. Robin, great to see you guys. Oh, you just commented on my cozy blue jacket. I realized when you look at it in this frame, I totally look like I'm wearing a robe. I promise you, it's just a jacket, and I have a regular t-shirt underneath. I'm not doing this in my pajamas. So anyway, but yeah, it was just that kind of day that I just wanted that cozy feel. I could put my hood up and try to be, really cool. But see, then I just don't look cool. I just look weird. So anyway, but it is just a jacket, not my robe. How are you guys? I hope you're doing good. I was sick a couple weeks ago, and then Diego was sick, but now we're both doing good. I hopefully you guys are as well, and I'm hoping that's the last of it for this season. But yeah, so Maggie, you're in your PJs. That's good. See, that's how it should be. I won't ever admit that to you, but it might happen. Um, but I right now do get to work from home a lot. So most days are my slippers. That's my footwear for the day, which is awesome. So anyway, it's great to see you. Hi, Diane says I am. Just came flying in. Hi, Suzanne. So I would love to just jump into some questions if there are any. And oh, Gabriel, you have a pink. That would be pretty, a pink one of these. It's just so cozy. Some days I just feel like that's what I want. And I've been especially busy. I don't know if that's the way it is with you. Sometimes you just crave that sort of cozy thing. Um, okay. First question. Woohoo! Do you cast Canadian actors with my agency or casting opportunities? We have the option when we post a breakdown to post it in various, really the key markets within Canada through Breakdown Express, because there's a partnership with those Canadian markets as well. I don't always, because there's visa issues. So just like any other foreign country, as much as Canada doesn't seem like a foreign country, we always have to be careful as to whether an actor has the right papers to be able to work in the US. And if they don't, then that just complicates things, and we don't always have the time or the resources to overcome that complication. So I often do post in the Canadian market. So, for example, on The Chosen, we did post in the key, like Toronto, um, Vancouver. I think those might have been the two. I don't know if they did, but I didn't post. That came from Brock Allen. So they would have covered the Canadian cities, but there would have been a breakdown that went out to all the agents and reps who are associated with breakdown services for The Chosen. And then it just depends on the project. If I know the project doesn't have the resources to be able to deal with anyone who doesn't have their papers, then I will probably not, because travel's more expensive, all of that. It just, is a little different. So the answer is I do sometimes, but not every time. So, is volunteering for table reads a wise thing to do to build relationships? Yes. It's a great thing to do. Yeah, if I've often had producers or director who did a table read, and there was someone in that table read they really loved, and so when it comes to officially casting the project, they've remembered that person. And sometimes they aren't, like, they might have read for the lead actor in their film at the table read, but for the actual project need to go a little bit more namey. But they'll typically remember that person and still try to cast them in something. So anytime you can be in a place where two things: where you're meeting and networking with other filmmakers, number one. Number two, when you're doing something where you are of service to someone like that, there's no negative in that. People appreciate it. And then if you, it's an opportunity to show off a little bit, to show your work. So that can only bring good things. And even if you weren't cast, it was a great opportunity for you to practice. So there's no downside to that at all. At all. It's awesome. Laura Ann, do you accept requests to critique our materials if we've never gotten an audition through you? I'd love your feedback. I eventually will. As you can imagine, there's no way for me to open that up to just everyone to be able to do. I'm hoping this summer that there will come an opportunity where I'll be able to make one-on-ones available, whether that be for going over materials, reviewing materials, giving some feedback on reels or an audition scene, or maybe even coaching for an audition scene that's not an audition for me, but if you have something for another casting director. So my hope is Diego and I have been working on this or talking about this for future plans. But I don't have a firm date for that, but I'll let you know. We've talked about it for a little while, and that would be an opportunity to do that. So yeah, that would be the best way. There's just no way I can just open it up for anybody anytime. But I'm sure you can imagine that. So, but yeah, we'll put some sort of structure in place. So, for those who are hi, Andrea, for those who are just starting out, what tips would you give for resumes? We talked a little bit about this before, but you just have to make the most of your strength. So I mentioned this the last time, so forgive for those of you who may have heard this, but if you don't have a lot of film individually and you don't have a lot of TV individually, then list your film and TV as one category, because it's better for you to list it as one category with a few more listings. It just looks like there's more there than if you were to say film and then you list one credit, and then TV and you list 2 credits. It's better to have film, TV, and have 3 credits listed. It's just better. But if your strong suit is theater or has been theater, then make sure that that's prominent. But you don't want to list background, because it's not really applicable. So I wouldn't fill up your resume with a lot of background work, because that doesn't really help you. But wherever your weak spots are, try to make it up where you can. So if your resume is really thin now, then get education and make sure you're putting a lot of great education things on there, so that we can see that you're still pursuing it, you're active, you're investing in your craft, and you're serious about it. So yeah, that's what I would say. What am I casting right now? So a couple of things. The Chosen, of course, although, and I do get a lot of emails from people who, quite honestly, are a little frustrated because they really, really want to work on the show, and they just don't see opportunities coming. And I want to say one more time that The Chosen specifically is a very non-Caucasian show. So that's the first thing you need to understand. If you are Caucasian, white, there's very few roles each season that become available, because that's just not the context or the setting for the show. So just understand that there's a lot of people for very few roles. And even in the context of being, Caucasian versus diverse, there's Caucasian, we can't cast anyone who just looks American, all American, right? Like an all American cheerleader type. Yes, they're Caucasian, and there were Caucasian or white people in the Roman empire, but they looked Roman. They didn't look all American. And so within even some of the diverse areas, it has to be the right look. It has to feel authentic and look authentic. And what you want to understand is the purity of bloodlines back then is very different than now. So it sometimes there's just a look that isn't right and isn't going to work for the show. And that's the stuff you have no control over. And then on the diversity side, keep in mind there's always probably eight men to 2 women as far as ratio each season, maybe even less. 9 male roles to 1 female role each season. It's a heavily male show as far as the new roles, because we've established a great core cast of female characters, and we have several of our recurring characters that are female. So it's not that the show is male dominant, but we've established a really strong female base. And so the new roles, which tend to be like guards and people, that they're having encounters in the street and that they meet along the way, and just culturally, it tends to be more male dominated. So I think it's just important that you have a realistic context for that show and how it's cast, and understand that you may never be right for it. And that has nothing to do with you as an actor. You just may never be the right fit for that show. I'm not saying you aren't, because I don't know all of you, but I just want you to have that context and understanding, because I don't want you to continually be frustrated. But there are, 3 more seasons. So never say never. We did an open call last year before season 3. And it's not to say we won't do one again. We didn't do one this year because we didn't feel like we needed it, because we had done one last year, but it's not to say we won't do an open call again. And always, again, have an Actors Access account, and that's where I will post, at least in Actors Access, and you can look. But if there isn't a role posted that fits you, that's just, unfortunately, that's the reality for that season, and we just wait and see what comes up the next season. So The Chosen is one project. I'm getting ready to do a series out of Nashville, just a first season 5-episode kind of pilot endeavor for PureFlix, or it'll end up on PureFlix. I'm working with other producers, but and I'm excited about that. It's called County Rescue. That breakdown went out a couple weeks ago, I think, right before I was sick. So that's out. And what else am I working on? Yeah, I'm getting ready to start something else, but I haven't. I just emailed today to get the confirmation as to when that's going to officially start up. And so I'll hold off saying anything until I get that word, but I'll let you know once that gets official and I'm allowed to say something. I will let you know for sure. So anyway, yeah, so plenty happening for me for sure. Eric, hi Eric. There's talk about WGA and DGA going on strikes. Are those strikes going to hurt us as actors? I'm assuming union jobs are going to be affected. What about non-union? No, it won't affect non-union. In fact, in some cases, it might cause some projects to go non-union if they, really need to shoot and they can't, they're in the middle of a strike. Now that wouldn't be the case for any big project. They're not going to cross the line that way. But if it's like an independent film that thought they would go SAG and then, well, it's not, it won't affect SAG unless it gets really contentious and SAG decides to kind of stand with them. But SAG won't officially strike just for that reason. So yes, it may affect, because some union jobs with union writers and directors may stop. So some TV production, I think that's where the biggest concerns are, is just regular TV production, because that just shuts those shows down. So, but if you're not SAG yet, it's probably not going to affect you. But I overall, there just might be less work, less available things to audition for and less work. So, um, yeah, it's always a question mark, and nobody wants it to happen, for sure. So hopefully they work it out. So, and is education more impactful over background work? Um, I'd say both. If you're building your resume in other areas, I think both are important, because it is good to see that you've been on sets. But yeah, education. I would want to see strong education efforts, and then some background work, to know that you've been on sets, and you're familiar with that, and you kind of know the protocols of sets and things like that. But just a resume full of background work with no education would not be ideal, at least for me. And just know that any answers that I'm giving you are my opinions. Just, yeah. So, um, so yeah, I mean, ideally, I'd like to see both. Hi, Ruben. I saw your latest headshot, Ruben. It's very nice. Doing classes, auditions, etc. But are there any opportunities for internships that you're aware of? I'm also looking at this regarding my college essays. Internships in what area? Can you clarify that? I'll look for your comment on the side. So yeah, I guess I need a little more direction in any fields. I don't know, depending, I mean, you're young, so I don't know what opportunities there would be as far as internships, unless you're working through a specific education program that provides those opportunities, which I'm sure there are some where that's what a part of what's built into the educational experience is, either, a window of time with a production company, or some area. I mean, anytime you have a chance to do that, that's certainly wonderful. But it's not like there's just a list of internships that you can just go and get on sets and work in production companies. They would be through, I think, partners with some sort of educational programs. But I would look for that and see if that's something you could do. You're a little young from a standpoint of um, of what production companies can take in and work with, just because of child labor laws and things like that. So that's why I say it would really have to be, when I was in high school, eons ago, there was what was called ROP. And so that was where you went and you worked after school in what would be a regular job, but it was for educational purposes, and it satisfied certain educational criteria as far as credits. And so you were getting real world experience in a job, but it was under the supervision of that program. And the employers were basically partnering with the program, as opposed to bringing in all these individual interns. So anyway, I would just research it. Call SAG, find out what they have, what they know of. Yeah, that's what I would say. And there's comments on here, so you can look at comments for that other people are telling you as far as things you might try. With Actors Access, some CDs prefer labeled short clips, dramatic. Okay, so this is a question I've answered several times. I don't say that as a negative. I'm just going to say that for those of you who heard me say it, I'm just going to say the same thing, which is I prefer a reel in which you have chosen the material you feel is your best work. You've put that up front, You've not spent 30 seconds doing a music video montage, which is ridiculous and completely a waste of time. But that you've selected your best work that you feel is your best foot forward, you put it in the front, and your reel is 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. And then, if you can, I would also then separately list the clips. Now, that is my strong preference. But Tony Brock, who I work with on The Chosen, we were talking about this in a casting session a few weeks ago. And she said, "Oh, I just want the clips. I just want to be able to click on a clip." And so that's why I say everyone has their own preferences. Mine, I don't want to just click on clips because how do I know that that's your best work? I my philosophy is I don't think you should leave that up to me. I think you should just put your best foot forward. And then if I want to click around other clips, then I can. I think having both is the best thing. But I would prefer that you have a compilation reel rather than just individual clips. So that's me. There's probably many others who prefer something else. Do you use Backstage at all or only Actors Access and casting networks? I do not use Backstage. I did years and years ago. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just I end up with a bunch of duplication and it's just not efficient for me. So I don't. A lot of people do, but I don't. Yeah, I just found it was too many platforms, too many duplications, and not enough benefit for me personally. They're great, so I wouldn't say don't use them or don't look. Especially for theater notices, I tend to see more of that listed in Backstage. But so yeah, I'm not saying don't use them, but I don't post there because it just creates too much duplication for me as far as submissions. So oh, Backstage stock just dropped. You're so funny. Favorite movie I saw this past year. Wow, that's hard for me because I liked pieces of a lot of movies. Um, I thought Top Gun was a heck of a lot of fun. That was one of the most enjoyable, just like go and completely be entertained from start to finish and just get wrapped up in it. Now, of course, some of that's nostalgic for me because, I saw the first Top Gun and uh so there was a lot of nostalgia in certain scenes and the music and things like that. But I just thought it was incredibly entertaining and well done. And I really liked the cast. I'm I every year it seems I become a bigger and bigger fan acting wise of Miles Teller. I rewatched Whiplash and man, that was intense. That movie was intense. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of movies that I've seen and I liked a lot of it, but didn't like all of it, that kind of thing. Um, so yeah, Suzanne, Maverick was the flick that got me back in theaters. I did too. I thought it was really well done. I thought it was universal as far as ages. Yeah, it just was that all encompassing theatrical experience, the movie you needed to see in theaters. And it did. It kind of took you back to theaters. So there's more movies coming up that I do want to go see. I'm kind of guilty of not getting to the theater as much, but there have been several that I've wanted to go see that I will. Um, the ones that were up for Oscars were kind of hit and miss for me. Um, but I haven't seen a few of them. So yeah, I will eventually. I'm just a little slow on the take. So Sophia, do you have any insider opinion about the announcement from CSA regarding their partnership with Talent Systems, Cast at Casting or Spotlight, and what might change, if anything? In my opinion, Actors Access has been chosen for US, has been the chosen for the US for a while and more cost friendly for actors. I don't think that they're going to drop breakdowns and Actors Access, to be honest. I think that and Spotlight has been a partner. Like I use Spotlight for all the UK submissions. When I'm posting over the UK, I use Spotlight as my default. I don't see Cast It is a different system. So Cast It is actually very costly. It's not a very indie film friendly option. It's an amazing powerhouse of a software package and program, but it's meant for studio features and studio TV because it's expensive to use, and so typically there's only budget usually if it's a big studio feature or a larger bigger budget feature. So I don't see Cast It taking over a breakdown situation. Um, Cast It is pretty standard for the bigger budget pieces, but for smaller indie stuff, it's cost prohibitive in a lot of ways. But it is a great system. It's just not as accessible. So I don't see it replacing um, either of those other, which are more accessible for sure. Um, I don't know. We'll see about casting networks. We'll see. I don't see it happening anytime soon, but it could just be, an augmented, or someone may choose individually to use those systems, but I haven't seen it like taking over things. So, but it's good not to have a monopoly either, because one you don't want to have one company kind of have a monopoly on everything. Competition is good in that respect. So will I be, hi, Adria. Will you be attending International Christian Visual Media Conference in Nashville in November? Likely. I don't have my plans firmed up, but that is one I typically try to attend. So that would probably be the plan, but I've not formalized anything or been asked to like speak or, you know, be there on any sort of official capacity, but it's also pretty early. So, um, but that is usually one I try to make plans to attend if I can. So, yeah, so hopefully I will be at ICFF, International Christian Film Festival, which is actually ICFAMF, International Christian Film and Music Festival, but they just go by ICFF. Um, Okay, have I seen Jesus Revolution? Thoughts on it? Um, I'm going to be very transparent and tell you that I have not seen it yet. And the only reason being is that I worked on it for a little while. Before COVID, I was actually working on the film. It was a different director at that time. And I worked on it, and then we got shut down by COVID. Um, we tried to kind of hang on, but then the world shut down. And so when they came back up and went back into production, I was working on, I think it was The Chosen last season. So, I wasn't available, and the director had changed. And so they were just making kind of big changes. So, um, yeah, there's a little bit of sentimentality there for me. So I know the story, and I of course knew the script and everything behind it. And when I was sick a couple weeks ago, it was that time when it was coming out, and so being sick and feeling like I would go see it, but it just wasn't ideal because I was sick when it opened. But it's a great story. I loved that story, loved working on it. And of course, the Irwins and Kevin Downs and Brett McCorkle, like they're great people, great filmmakers, sincere men of God, people of God on the team. So I was very happy for the success. But I haven't seen the full film yet, to be honest, just because the timing wasn't right with me being sick that weekend. So advice for aspiring casting director. Go work in production. Go get experience in production. So you have an understanding of what it takes to be on production and to be what the actors need, aside from just being good actors, just what kind of personalities and what kind of people do well in that environment, because it isn't for everybody. And they have to be able to work, under stressful situations. They have to be able to deliver and hit their mark. And So the more you know about production, the more you understand what's necessary. It helps you understand how the budgets work and the push and pull of all of that dynamic. It helps you understand what the producers, what all that they're battling. So I think getting production experience is good, but I think the best thing is to just start looking for opportunities to do it, whether it's with other filmmakers that starting on films that you'll do for free, a short front of your short film that you're going to cast for free. But if you're going to do that, you need to do it the way that it should be done. So it isn't just about casting all your friends. I mean, you can if they're qualified, but it should really be, okay, learn what it is to put out a breakdown. And nobody taught me. I self-taught, and I learned, and I was an avid researcher on Google. I read books. I Googled every term. I watched behind the scenes videos. I didn't intern or mentor under another casting director. And so you just have to have that mentality. You just have to really be like, okay, I'm going to learn, I'm going to teach, I'm going to, teach myself. I'm going to learn everything about it, try to understand it, read books, watch interviews, all of that. Just do what you can to learn as much as you can, and then make yourself available to other filmmakers. As you know, I started working with a friend of mine who was a filmmaker, and I had said I would intern. And I worked for $50 a week, doing whatever, and casting was a part of it. But I did casting, production coordinating, ADing, several different things for several years, including casting, until one by one, the thing that was consistent, that I consistently loved doing, and where I felt like my strengths were the most aligned, and that was casting. But when I started out, I kind of opened myself up to any of it. So I would encourage you to do the same. So yeah, that's what I would say. There's no one exact path. Is it Demi? Demi? How wide of an age range to play should we list in our actors access profile resume? I'm coming back to acting after a long time away. I'm having a hard time narrowing this one down. Okay, you guys, that's a good question. You need to be realistic, okay? For film and TV, you do not have as broad a category as you do for theater. So in theater, sure, if you're 40 years old, you could play a 70-year-old woman with theater makeup, stage makeup, right? If you're 40 years old, you could probably get away with playing an actor in their 20s in a musical, on stage. In film, you cannot do that. You can't. And you need to be realistic about what you can play. I saw someone's age range the other day listed as 18 to 40. And I'm sorry, nobody who is playing 40 is playing 18. They're just not. One of those isn't true. So either they can play 18 and there's no way they'll ever play 40, or vice versa. So you've got to be realistic. When you make that decision, you've got to understand there's no Instagram filter, there's no filters on your face or your photo. The camera is right here, and it's going to tell all. You have no control over the lighting, so the lighting could be harsh. You need to think of it that way, realistically. In a close-up on TV or in film, what's realistic? And go by that. Yeah. So, yeah, be honest with yourself. Or ask someone else, ask a couple people their advice as to how they see you, how they perceive you, age-wise. But ask people who are going to tell you the truth, not the people who are going to just tell you what you want to hear, but people who will really, really be honest with you. Okay, sorry, you ask 20 people how old they think you are. Sure. I agree with that. That could give you a good core range. People who don't know you, that could be a really good core range. Absolutely. That is a good thing. So can we expect more acting from you? I don't know. I certainly enjoyed it. And of course, that's where I started. Um, but I would need to do what I keep telling you guys to do, is just to make sure that I'm, um, in a class, and that I'm working on the craft, and that it's not something I'm just sort of throwing together and doing because someone asked me to, but that I could do it in a way that's professional and is um, giving it the seriousness that the craft itself deserves. And so I don't know when I'll have time to do that in a larger, on a more consistent level. But I have thought that maybe it's something I do um, if I ever slow down on the casting side and kind of pursue that. But I would put myself to the same standards that I put to you guys as far as how you approach it. So, um, what are some things you're hoping to offer for coaching? Most of the requests I get are reviewing current materials and being able to give some honest feedback on scenes, or on like a reel or even resume, just where it's very personalized and very specific feedback, rather than, here I'm only able to give you general kind of guidelines or general opinions. But when I'm working with someone one on one, I can get very specific, like move this scene here and I'd move this scene here and I wouldn't use this scene, or you know even if it's coaching a scene and challenging you to think differently. um so it can be any number of things. It can be professional advice, it can be um if someone wants to talk about potential casting, certainly that's an option too, but that's not what I am planning for, but that's certainly an option. But mostly it's to be able to give very personalized feedback, um, and coaching one on one, which I just don't often have the opportunity to do. So, and I actually really love it. So I would hope to be of service and benefit to someone. Try to keep the cost as low and efficient as I can, so that it doesn't become a burden for you guys as actors. Kind of try to find that balance. But yeah, so that's what I would plan for. We'll let you know when the time comes that we can start planning that. So, um, okay, I think, okay. So I just realized we're at like the 40-minute mark. Okay, it always goes by so fast, you guys. It really does. Um, Joanne, I see your question. Ask me next week, okay? Come back and ask me next week, because for tonight I'm gonna sign off. But and Diego, maybe look at her question and about the more than one agent, and then I could start off with that next week. So I'll plan to see you Tuesday. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your questions. And I was also thinking, I'll talk with Diego. I was also thinking that maybe one of these Tuesday nights we do a little bit of a monologue where we do some 1-minute monologues, and I can give some quick feedback and maybe sign up for those. Diego's hearing this for the first time, so I'm sure he's like, oh my gosh, what is she talking about? But anyway, but we'll keep trying to cook up plans to make sure this stays interesting and helpful to you guys, because obviously that's the priority. So yeah, appreciate you guys, and I'll see you next Tuesday. And yeah, love you guys. See ya.